There's this nice little AI feature within Notion where you could just ask it questions and it helps you to build whatever you need. It's been an incredible tool. I just love that it helps me have a view of all of the things that I normally would dig through my computer for. I've literally organized it all so that it works for me. I love that Notion it just allows you to just do very easily.
I am here today. Today's guest started her AI journey in possibly the most relatable way imaginable by making content for her cat's Instagram. I love it. What began as a bit of fun with generative AI tools has turned into something much bigger, a genuine passion. We've got a Notion life management dashboard built with Claude, a new role as an AI trainer herself through our AI for Non-Techies program, and also studying AI executive level at MIT. She's someone who can move between the deeply technical and the beautifully practical in the same breath. And I'm really excited. I'm so excited to speak to her today. Please welcome Erika Gianni. Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Honestly, as soon as I saw that you were of the ops ilk, I was like, right, we need to chat. So if we start off with obviously the most important thing, your cat. Can you tell us how a cat's Instagram account became the beginning of a whole new chapter with AI?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think probably I've played around with ChatGPT and stuff like that when it first came out, but and it was just for content stuff, nothing fancy. But where I got really excited was when one day I happened to be sitting on, I think, Facebook, and I saw an ad for a creative branding workshop that was totally free, where you learned how to create your brand in AI. And I was like, oh, well, we just got our little cat who my husband and I love and adore. And we had wanted to start a little Instagram page for her because, I'm a pet parent who has 5,000 photos of her cat on her phone all the time. Yeah. So, Of course, I need an Instagram page. But I thought, well, let me just do this. This will be fun. I'll try it out and see what it is. And it ended up being the most amazing workshop I never expected. It was with a designer who had worked for Nike for many years, and she was teaching women how to use different tools like Midjourney, like in the early days of Midjourney, and then other AI tools where you could kind of, see the color palette that you were going to choose, et cetera. But the best part about that whole program was she took us through kind of step by step what a creative person would normally do, coming up with an archetype, coming up with, photos from just going through Pinterest that were actual live photos, then kind of coming up with your color palette, coming up with your fonts. And it was fascinating. And then along that too, she also introduced us to, okay, how do you write prompts in a way that are going to get what you really want? And now in her, class, what she was doing was showing people how to brand themselves and obviously put their faces on things. And that wasn't for me. But she really walked through, okay, what do you think about ethically in terms of what kind of material you're actually using or trying to recreate or do. And I loved it so much. And so I took this inspiration of my cat and started doing stuff. I did do a ton for Instagram, but I did do her branding, and you'll laugh because I have my mug of one of my first pictures I did.
I love this. That's so clever.
But I have a whole series of pictures of cats from Instagram that are actual cats.
So good.
And I made a whole series of images and put them on mugs because one needs mugs with cat photos, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But that was really the start, and that led me to this whole group of women who were using AI in really fun ways, and I was just I have to learn more and more and more, and that just set me off like wildfire. So it was a lot of fun.
Do you think that it being a creative intro, so I know that you were obviously using a few of the tools before that, but do you think it was that kind of tap into an interest of yours that really unlocked that kind of excitement to do more?
I really do. I think it was that element of creating something totally different that was part of my life that I love. My fluffy little cat. That really just led me to like, oh, okay, well, what other things could be just as fun as this? And I truly believe that that creation part is so important in somebody's AI journey, just to get them moving, in a certain direction.
No, I love that. And actually, as part of that course, it sounds like you covered like really the fundamentals as well. So you, like you said about the risk or the ethical side of things as well, but also understanding that workflow, like taking a designer, somebody that actually provides imagery and things for social media. It's still not kind of being about the tool. It's still being about that process and then how the tool kind of complements.
Yeah, and it was interesting because this was a couple of years ago, and the tools were at a very different stage at that point. And so while we were, maybe touching on tools here and there, she really paid attention to going through the steps that a designer would normally take. And I had worked with designers for many years in my career, and so I kind of was familiar with some of that. But I was just like, oh, okay, thinking it from this lens, and oh, wait, I'm going to go find pictures that I like that are kind of my inspiration. But those are, live, real pictures, not just stuff created by AI.
Yeah.
And I loved that she also kind of took us through the prompting aspects and, made us think about things like, whether we have copyright, if, if we're making these tools, what do we need to think about legally? What do we need to think about like ethically? Are we just like ripping off somebody's work? Like, she really did go through all of those things. And I was just like, wow, there's so many different lenses to AI that, you can pay attention to. And I love that was kind of a foundation for me.
I've just written down the word lenses. I think that's such a good way of putting it, of not just coming at this from that one dimensional side, being able to kind of consider all of that, which I think can sometimes be difficult when it's tool first. So you studied AI at MIT.
Yeah, so I was in an MBA program over at MIT and took some separate courses on AI through that program as well. So I wouldn't say that was my complete focus, but we definitely took some courses through there too. Yeah.
And obviously, so you compare that to kind of your going into this within a creative, kind of almost like a hobby, coming from an interest point of view with the course that you did with the Instagram, but also then seeing it from like the perspective of an MIT kind of course. Obviously, two very different worlds. What did one teach you that the other couldn't? I think would be really interesting.
It was interesting. I think from the MIT side, there was definitely a lot of theory. And in our MBA program, it was very, very intense, kind of mathematically. Mm-hmm. So what I learned on that side was more the way you might structure your data, the way you might think about solving a particular problem. Based on the type of information you have. So, are you thinking about, what type of AI might you be using, just predictive models or, something that needs to, well, at the time there wasn't really necessarily generative AI. So, I would have been looking at stuff more from like just predictive analytics type of stuff versus, something that's more generative. So I think when you get to that generative AI piece, you really are like to really learn and understand it, you really need to create something with it. Whereas with, what I was learning at MIT, it was, okay, how is my data structured? How is this, what is this particular problem? What information do I have? And how do I solve this? The two worlds were very, very different, but I'm, glad to have had both perspectives, I think. So yeah, that was really the difference.
No, it's really interesting. Massively complementary, actually. And I love the idea of it being, probably more sort of analytical, or definitely like what was the problem before the solution. I can imagine that the cross references between the two were that they overlapped a little bit anyway with with the kind of the teachings, just depending on that kind of level of understanding?
Yeah, I think so. I guess it's interesting now to kind of go, play around with different generative AI things and think back to like, okay, how, what was I learning at that particular time, and how does that come into play right now? So I would definitely go back to some of those days, and I probably should break out some of my notes and, like go back through it.
Do you know what? That would be so interesting, actually, to even just to see how much has changed. And obviously, because of the development of tools and the usability of tools and like the integrations and all that sort of stuff, I'm sure loads have. But like, actually, I wonder if the fundamentals have really have changed, because from like an AI for non-techies perspective, a lot of our early trainings followed the same path. It looks very different now, but it was all about kind of like input versus output, understanding the risks and limitations around what you're using, how much do you actually need to know to be able to use these tools versus what you don't need to know. So yeah, I would say please dig out those notes and share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking too, like, perhaps the one thing that wasn't actually talked about quite as much, because at MIT and an MBA and some of those classes, we would have been talking about, again, the data, the structure of things, and perhaps not as much as you hear now on risk or, just the ethics or the bias per se. I don't think that came up quite as much. There were definitely considerations around, the cleanliness of data, like, what might you get based on the type of information you have. But I think that that's definitely more of a focus as you kind of are in the generative AI world. So
yeah. No, that's really, the desire to pick like more into the cleanliness of data, but I'm very conscious that like that's probably going along the more techie routes. And I'm like, but tell me about cleanliness of data. No, but you know what? We're going to do something even more interesting than the cleanliness of data. We'll talk about your Notion life management dashboard. Now, obviously, this is so a big interest for I think, especially at the moment with all the developments that we have across Claude, right? And like the connections that we can do between the co-work and the code piece. Please, what was it like building with Claude over a weekend? I mean, having that time to be able to really immerse yourself in building something, and tell us more about how it's changed how you work and how you live.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say I was one of those people who, when I first learned about Notion, probably a couple years ago, it didn't have all the fun AI features, obviously. It was not my favorite tool. It was like, I came to that place of like, oh, no, I don't like this. And really within the last year, I started to see all the things you could do with the Notion. I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is amazing. And so I think I probably started like many people with Notion, where I sat down and like brought out all of these templates. Like there's so many templates, there's so many things. And I quickly realized I don't know if this is me, and in my head, like, I don't know if this is the right template for me. And that's one thing I really learned is like right now we're in this space where everybody has kind of very individual way of working. And Notion really allows you to satisfy that by doing whatever you want. And so I literally sat down one weekend. I had gotten an inspiration from another person on creating this kind of brain map for myself of just like, anytime I have an idea, I kind of will speak it into whatever place, and I have a brain dump go into, a database, if you will. And then what I do is I have that process into a task list with, based on whatever comes out of my brain. And then I have that, go into, okay, well, over time, if there's something I keep saying over and over again, how can I like refer that as like something I'm really interested in? So that's where I started, of just like using kind of Claude to help me kind of come up with what I wanted to do. And then literally started pushing that over to Notion and say, hey, help me build this in Notion. And that was just with a connector. And so I quickly deleted the template that I had and started just building my own thing. And as I went through each piece, I was just like, oh, I want this thing and I want that thing. And it was so easy to add. And when I got stuck, there's this nice little AI feature within Notion where you could just ask it questions and it helps you to build whatever you need. So it's been an incredible tool. But I just love that it helps me kind of have a view of all of the things that I normally would dig through my computer for.
Yeah.
I've, as I started down that path, I realized, oh, wait, I want to organize all of the stuff on my computer in certain folders. I'm going to have all my bookmarks the same. I'm going to have all the stuff on Google Drive the same. So I've literally organized it all so that it works for me. But, what works for me doesn't probably work for everybody. But I love that Notion it just allows you to just do very easily. So
this is coming from or going towards somebody who has got like 40 screenshots on my desktop that I just keep having to manually drag into a folder that says screenshots just to clear out that back bit. The idea of being able to have that level of organization within your drive is just amazing. I think your experience of Notion, because I'm the same as you, so I came to Notion and I thought, this is like a one-stop shop, almost like a digital notebook, right? To be able to just like drop things in. And I saw all these really cool ways that people were using Notion. And I was the same as you. I think I purchased templates. Like I was like, oh, well, it's worked for that person. And I really struggled to kind of shoehorn my way of working within a template that had been fixed. So the idea of being able to, for speed, be able to dictate what you're after, even be guided on what you're after from your original brain dump into Claude, using those two in that way just to kind of like make sense. It's like talking to a matter expert, isn't it? Being able to say, well, what is possible within Notion? Oh yeah, that's possible. Oh, okay, wicked. Like I'll add that into my dashboard. Is really cool. And is it user friendly? Do you find it's something that people could pick up and...
Yeah, I think that's the hard part is like there's so much in there that sometimes people almost get stopped like, oh, wow, what do I do next? And even I took like a little workshop I guess it was maybe 2 weekends ago on Notion, and I learned yet another thing that I could do. So I added that in. But what I think is great with Notion is you can kind of start small and then just build over time, which is probably the best way for people who aren't familiar with it to do. And in fact, tomorrow I'm doing a little workshop with some women on, how to get started with Notion because there's so many people who want to use it. And and I'm no expert, but I definitely can help build a couple databases. But it's if you start small, you can build on over time. And there's so much you can do on the free version too, which was pretty amazing. You just kind of get more AI credits as you start to pay, if you will. But there's, you don't have to start from the place of this fancy dancy template. Yeah. You can have something just easy for yourself. So
I love that, especially the use of free there with the amount of subscriptions to tools and testing things and trying things and committing. It's it's time as well, time that it goes into using these tools and understanding how to use these tools. It sounds like it's quite a nice middle ground. So brain dump, if we go back to that, do you do that using AI voice tools? Do you use the...
Yeah, I do. And I have I've set up now a scheduled reminder for myself at a certain time of the week to just kind of do that. And then, process everything. But I love the voice tools. I'm getting more and more used to them, I would say. I think actually Heather really recommended something called Letterly at some point. And
we loved
it.
Yeah.
That was so great because there's so many times where I'm just sitting there and I'm not near my computer, but I definitely have my phone and I can, put something down. I am the queen of sticky notes too. I have tons of sticky notes all over my desk. So Letterly has made my life a little bit better. but I take that sometimes if I have some of those notes, I'll kind of put those all in, at the same time. So it might be like a mishmash of a lot of different things that I will add all at once. But the voice tools have been tremendous. And I've been trying out Whisper Flow too. But yeah, it's voices, I think, definitely a huge thing that is going to be a shift for all of us to kind of make things a little bit easier. But
it's just on the go, isn't it? Just being able to, I do like school drop-offs and school pickups, and usually will come out sort of like with 100 things in my head, and just being able to talk at something during that time and using that time in what I feel is productive. I don't know if Claude would agree with that, listening to the outputs, but it's just... But also, I think as well, like maybe like a mindfulness of being able to get outside, go for a walk, and being able to record these things, I think has been really important.
Yeah, and I'm like a big walker. I've always loved walking, and a lot of times I would either read books while I was walking, or kind of listen to just podcasts, or just listen to music, or nothing. But it's nice to, if I have my phone and I have a thought, because I have so many thoughts just on walks, I could take out my phone, speak out a notes, and then, remember that later. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I love that. So if I can pick your operations brain here, I've got it that you're building systems to help yourself make better decisions. What does that actually mean to you? What kind of decisions are you hoping AI will help you navigate?
Funny things just like in my life normally, speaking of Notion, one of the things I did was create this funny little subscription database of just like literally all of the subscriptions that I have. And I did spend some good time like going through all of my finances and checking and seeing like, do I need this? Do I really care? Mm-hmm. Do I use this? If not, then why am I, why do I have a subscription for it? So that's something probably a lot of us can relate to right now. Yes. Is just how many things we actually have, and do we really need it? And that one little database has made all the difference for me, because I never had it kind of a full view. I can go into my bank account, I could go into whatever, but I wanted to have it in a full view. And now I'm starting to put some automation so that it like gives me reminders for big things that might just want to have a second thought.
Yeah.
So that's one. I definitely have also kind of my goals and everything that I've written down, and I put into different databases as well. Those are things that I probably never really wrote down, and never really went back to throughout the year. And now I'm actually going back and going, oh, okay, did I do that? Did I actually make some sort of intentional effort to work towards that? So I think it's things like that I've been trying to pay attention to. The visibility helps.
Yes. Yeah.
And, that's something just in operations in general. Like a lot of times things are hidden. And when you don't have the visibility, you can't really do anything about it, or you forget about it. If you think in like a big organization, there's like lots of people and people are just doing their own thing, but the visibility always helps. So, all of these tools and all the things that I'm creating, I'm trying to give visibility to myself in like a single spot. So I can quickly go in and go, okay, I'm good. I know where I'm at. And make decisions from there.
It's like, I just wanted to, like, I was like shouting in my head, like visibility. Yes. Accountability. Yes. The idea that, especially you being able to go back and have a look and track, there's no way that you can do that when it's thoughts coming up in the head, and time wise, you sort of put these things to a side and you go, well, actually, or maybe you start the year kind of writing down what it is that you're looking to do for kind of to achieve in 2026. Well, you write that in a notebook. I don't know if you're anything like me. I have hundreds of notebooks. I wouldn't be able to go back very easily and look through what I'd written down. I think that visibility piece as well is just so important within multiple subscriptions, but also you're using it in a really clever way. You've said not only, right, yes, one place for visibility, so finance wise is a great idea, and making that decision based on what you can see rather than what you're kind of guessing or flicking through when you go through a bank statement. But also you're then doing kind of that next step of looking at where you potentially could bring in automation to replace multiple tools. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, I've always kind of viewed operations as like evolution of stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect from the start. So how do I evolve from like step 1 to step 2 to step 3? So I might have had, very basic databases to start. And now, like, how do I move on to the next step of, make a decision from it, or then, on to automations, or, just it sends me reminders. So I kind of tend to think of that way in my life, and like I have all kinds of databases, but that, I have a prompt library, I have other things too. But again, it kind of all comes back to that visibility. And then what can I do with it next? Okay, now I have this prompt library. Great. Can I share it with people? But that, for me, it's been like I've been pulling all of this stuff together from all of these multiple places and making sure I have it in a single place for myself, which I could have probably done before in like a folder on my computer or Google Drive somewhere, but then I have to like go searching and finding for it.
Yeah. Or keep it updated. I don't know about you, but having like sort of documents or sheets or whatever it is, the way that you track it, or even a filing system on your own computer can become difficult of being like, where did I put that? And I mean, I don't know about you, but the search ability, which is probably like the most basic use of AI, like for me, for Copilot, right? I'll just be able to be like, can I just double check what did so and so say at this point, like 2 weeks ago? It's like that extra brain space, isn't it, of not having to go and search for it myself, but being able to do that because you've put it all, you've created that kind of hub. I think is really interesting, and will definitely, like you say, that being a version 1, 2, 3 of what is to come, I think is really interesting. You're very comfortable using different tools. I know I had a little look at the list. It was like Midjourney, Claude, Notion, Zapier, and Gamma have been listed. Is there one that's genuinely surprised you, or one that you thought would be great and didn't quite click with you? I know we've talked about Notion being kind of that from the get-go, but any others?
Yeah, I haven't had as much luck with Zapier and like doing automations like with that. So I don't know if it's my favorite. I've tried some of the other, automation tools like Make and N8N.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, as Claude and other things improve, it almost feels like you can do some of those things that you would have done with those anyways. So I'm kind of like putting those to the side. But Gamma was another one where I didn't like it at first. And I think I might have tried it in early stages. And it didn't really give you anything great at all. And now I absolutely love it. Because it's got it just allows you to put in different themes. I tend to make my own images in Midjourney and then, change them. But that's just me. But the imagery has gotten a lot better in there too. So I think Gamma is one that has definitely surprised me and has been genuinely helpful. Like just last week, I needed to put together a presentation for an advisory board I'm on. And I was just like, I really don't have time for this. I just don't. But I had all of the output from the meeting I just had with this particular group. And I just said, okay, Gamma, help me out. I just put it all in there and, in a few minutes, I was able to put something together and, and I made quite a few edits, but just because it was context, and sent that to the group and they're like, this is great. And they gave me some other edits, but, it's been hugely helpful for just getting things done. So, and I absolutely love it. Yeah. Midjourney has probably always been my favorite just because it was a starting place. But
with Midjourney, so you were fairly early days with Midjourney, and wasn't particularly easy to use.
no.
You know, I know definitely in comparison to what it is now. You picked quite a difficult tool to start with when it comes to using it.
That one was really hard at first because you had to like connect it to Discord and like do all of these things. And you don't have to do that at all now. It's quite easy now. But that was hard, but I was so determined to make like images of my cat that I was like, I am going to go through this and suffer for my cat. But yeah, it was definitely not easy to use, but it's fun. You know, now that they've added in a lot of features, like you can like create little portfolios for yourself, which means like you can create like a brand board and, you know, another board based on some other interest you have and, you know, like something for a company you work for, whatever, you know, just have all of these different little profiles or portfolios, I think they call it. And then, you know, the images that you create might be different based on, you know, the reference images you put in. And so I love that. So I have my own little style, you know, with my images that I like to go towards. But it's pretty versatile. They've been just adding a lot of stuff to it.
Yeah, they do. They come across as, they listen, don't they? Customer feedback, customer use. But yeah, you're exactly right. Getting over that first hurdle of connecting it to Discord in the first place, and being like, what is this? What am I doing? That's cool. It's cool to see the transformation of that as well. You're not the biggest fan of custom GPTs. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I don't know. It's the funniest thing. I think, you know, so many people get into like custom GPTs, and I think they're genuinely helpful. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if I've ever like consistently used one. And that's probably amazing more than than an other people thing. But I've built them, but I just don't consistently use them. And it may just be the way that I work that I tend to kind of move on to other things, and I'll create systems or prompts that allow me to kind of do things over and over again. And I've found too that I've shifted more to Claude versus GPT. The open AI tools. And so what I'm finding with Claude is I can have a skill and I can have a this and I can have an that. So I don't know if I need that ChatGPT, but it definitely was one of those things where I was just like, I don't know if I work this way.
Yeah, I think something that goes through everything that you've said really is that you work it out in different versions. And I think the great thing about custom GPTs or the great thing about Claude projects is that you don't have to put that repeated piece of context in. But if you've already connected with Notion, the way that you're working may just not suit having to use the tool itself to do the repeatable work. It's about what you've built it into that becomes repeatable. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah, and I think even in Claude, I have different projects, and this is just probably stupidity on my part, but I have different projects that I've created. In some of them, I haven't added all in all the context yet, but I've added in context for myself for all of Claude. And so I definitely need to spend some time probably just adding context per project. And I probably just haven't gotten to that yet. Like that would probably help some of the output even for some of those projects. But, again, there's only so much you can do in a day. And I definitely don't believe in like going crazy and like burning yourself out for some of this stuff. But it's definitely one of those things where I never got into the ChatGPTs. So
that's absolutely okay. No, I think it's being mindful with the use of your time as well. Like we talk about how much time these tools and what we set up can save us, but actually then, and something we're really mindful of is we seem to fill that time again. So you're almost doing like double output, which I don't think is particularly healthy either. But also where you're putting your attention and your focus is using the tools in the way that work best for you within your workflow. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to build projects because it's hours, to put a decent project together. It takes a lot of time to fill that context, for it to be really effective. Otherwise you're kind of like straddling that bit of it not being quite good enough that you could probably get from a chat in that moment, using, especially if you've got it linked with co-work, being able to fill those kind of files up. And
and I think too, if I had kind of a bigger business that I was, running on my own and wanting to, add in like a lot of different things that I could get done during the day, I probably would build out more of that, like more quickly and more immediately. I haven't had the need yet. So that probably, plays into it a little bit. For the most part, I've created context for myself, which is something else that I've saved in my Notion databases and have like a reminder to like update on a quarterly basis. So like
that is so dreamy. I'm like sat there like, I don't use, do you know what, scheduling, I don't use that anywhere near as much as I should. Those prompts and those pokes of being able to update things and add things in, I think is really cool. Like you're building context quite organically in that way. I like that kind of, that building. It's dreamy. It's dreamy. Straight after this, I'm going to be like messaging you like, right now, please, can you share with me the dashboard? I need to see it. I've got a question about risks of processes becoming out of sight, out of mind with AI. You don't want to forget what other humans are going through, and how do you keep that balance in practice?
Yeah. It's an interesting one because it is, in the work that I've done prior to this, I've always worked with a lot of user experience designers and believe very much in kind of talking to actual humans to understand what's what they're going through. I'll say this even in my MBA classes, same thing. You have to talk to human. And part of our operations class, we definitely like went out to see different types of work as well. So I do still firmly believe like it's great to have some sort of output that can be just like magically drafted in AI. But you still have to understand what humans are doing. So I can give an example of recently I'm volunteering for something in my community. And it's just like this, women's AI group. And the team that puts on kind of all of the programs, they just have a lot of volunteers. They're trying to figure out like how to get their work done. They're trying to put out good programs. And it was just challenging for them to do that because the people are coming in and out all the time. So I said, okay, well, I can help with just like mapping out some of the processes. And, the first place I started was I had one conversation. I got some of the stuff that they have already created and, threw that into Claude and was able to get like this great process analysis, which is fantastic, looked awesome. But I was sitting there going, is that really what's happening? Like, I don't really know. And so literally last week I spent I got all of the volunteers. I had hour-long conversations with each of the volunteers and said, okay, walk me through what you're doing. And so that was a good bit of time, but I was able to kind of validate or, figure out if there was something else. And I definitely heard three things, which are kind of, normal things like the communication is challenging because they haven't decided on one place. The handoffs are hard because, people are volunteers and they're going in and out. And, there's some other parts around just not having like clear templates and stuff developed already because they're relatively new. All good. But I don't think I would have heard quite the same thing from just coming from some sort of output from AI. And I definitely got some of the human aspects of, some people are waiting and trying to find new jobs, or some people are doing other things. But I do believe that you still kind of need to understand those conversations. And I even took an AI operations course with this lady named Rachel Wood. And she starts her, framework with literally talking to humans.
It's so
So
mad. It's so
miracle,
mad.
just like,
Yeah.
and that is what you need to know, because it's like, okay, well, where can AI fit in?
Yeah.
Where do you want AI to do everything? Or where do you want it to do a piece? Or where should AI not be at all? Like you have to determine that by actually understanding the work that's going on. And some people are not going to do that. Obviously, they're just going to let AI do everything. But I firmly believe like you have to start from the place of talking to humans. So
you have to start with those sticky notes. Going back to your sticky notes, like you said, being able to kind of map it out yourself, and I think as well, you're so right that kind of emotional context around those conversations, hearing those inflections in voices where there's frustration or a reluctance or an overwhelm that just won't get picked up unless you're highlighting it and you're feeding into. It's almost like you needed to do the audit in comparison and then be able to kind of share notes with Claude in that way. But I think because we talk about this, don't we? We talk about, it almost being like one or the other, AI replacing or, not taking on AI adoption. And I know that now we talk about maybe more of a middle ground of that kind of human input and then using AI and then human reviews. But actually, the fact that you're starting with conversations, even within a course on AI in that way, it's all about the conversations and having that as your starting point. It shows a lot, doesn't it, about AI adoption.
It's fascinating because I think most people don't think about like, I can use AI for this. They're just trying to solve something, some sort of issue, some sort of problems, get something done at work. And so, just talking with them and understanding, well, where would AI be best is probably a good thing. Even recently with a team that I'm working with, we were trying to create something and one of the team members was like, why are you trying to automate everything? And I'm like, and so I had to sit and think about it for I'm like, are we? Are we just trying to make it easier to find something? So I had to think about like, what was her, challenge there.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have known that if I would have just been like, here, let's just build this thing. And, just like any technology.
Yeah. And actually, like, I know that we don't have time for this, but a big piece around change management in that way. If you can start those conversations early, you can be speaking to people about where they see it fitting in. You're more likely to have them adopting it when they're sort of built out as well. I can imagine, getting them on side early on fit to purpose.
Yeah, exactly. They feel like they're owners of something that they created. And so I feel like they, are definitely more bought in when they've had a chance to like have a say. So
that's so cool. Like that empowerment piece is really cool. So you've gone from learner to AI trainer yourself through the AI for Non-Techies Become an AI Trainer program. What does it mean to you to now be the person helping others find their way into AI?
I think there's definitely a sense of responsibility of like, what am I consistently learning like over time? And what am I sharing? And what is actually just foundational? Like I find myself, the more AI we have, like what are the actual foundations of what somebody really needs to know, and trying to remember where I started and what would help somebody to feel comfortable with getting started on their own path. So there's definitely this sense of responsibility, and I'm getting to that place of, oh geez, I don't have to know it all. I don't have time in the day to know it all. So how can I encourage people to feel the same way? Like it's okay where you're at. It's okay to begin where you're at and build in the habits that allow you to kind of do work with AI in the way that it makes sense for you, because I don't like people to feel pressured into anything. So yeah, I think there's just this like sense of responsibility, and helping people on their path for sure.
I love that. I think that is a fab place to end. It was so good speaking to you. Like, honestly, like all I want to do is be like, right, like I said, dashboard, show me the operations, show me the breakdown. No, it's been so interesting hearing about your journey through learning AI in the way that you did, the way that you accessed it, but also what you've gone on to do. Oh, thank you. And yes, please keep us updated. I'll make sure that we share your LinkedIn handle for people to be able to connect and learn more about what you're doing with Notion and the other tools and Midjourney. I mean, it's just, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.